I'm looking over at my calendar right now and it says it's the 27th day of March 2025. Do you know what that means? It's opening day.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, whatever they're calling it these days, and on Instagram. You can follow me. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. But the best way to get a hold of me is right here on YouTube, and just leave your messages right there. It is a exciting day for me. It's a big day because it's opening day. It's also the day that I have dropped the In Memoriam video, which I do every year. And we're going to talk a little bit about opening day. We're going to talk a little bit about In Memoriam. And we're going to give respect to Sam Bankhead, who is the latest player that you probably never heard of. And I'll just mention him briefly at the end. I've mentioned him before, but I'm going to bet some of you don't know who he is, and he's worth knowing. All right, so let's talk about the trivia question. By the way, I haven't done a show for a little bit. I did I dropped a couple on Sunday and Monday, and then came the avalanche. If you're following a feed here, obviously all of the division previews went on over the last bunch of days and kind of just filled up the feed here. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to give everyone a chance to listen. I'm not going to throw more shows at you here and bombard that. You get to hear from all the good people there. I did do a guest spot on Locked On A's, so check out Locked On A's, the show that I didn't co-hosted last year. I was the pinch hitter for the entire season at Locked On A's. I'm not doing that again. It was fun to do both shows, but it's not for the faint of heart. But Booney is the new host there. He's doing a great job. And I did a guest appearance, and we talked about my thoughts on the Sacramento A's going forward. And basically, I think the Sacramento A's are going to have a winning season. And I think they're going to be similar to what the Marlins were a couple of years ago, where they won about 83 games. I think that's what the A's are going to do, and I think they will be in the hunt for a wild card. I don't think they're going to be, as I said before, my three wild card teams are the New York Yankees. Despite all the injuries that they've had and everything, they have Judge. I think Goldschmidt and Bellinger, while they won't equal Soto, I think they'll be fine. And the main reason is I really like the Yankees bullpen. I'm nervous about their starting pitching staff. I'm nervous about their depth. But if they have a lead late, they're going to hold on to it. I love Seattle's starting pitching. If they just get a little bit better in their offense, I think they're going to be a decent team. And I think Cleveland has a lot of talent. And I think they're a little bit better than Boston and a little bit better than the Sacramento A's. So, but I think Sacramento is going to have a good year. I think they're going to be fun. And speaking of that, tomorrow or later today is the first day of the Sacramento A's. So the last day of the Oakland A's technically was the final game of the season in Seattle last year. They played the final game in Oakland. I was there. We were all crying. Then they played 3 games in Seattle. Well, now the Sacramento A's are opening the season. Luis Severino versus Gilbert, and the Sacktown A's are going to be playing, and they're the same place. So they're not opening in Sacramento yet. They're still stuck in Seattle. But I'm just thinking it's glorious. At 3:05 Eastern time, 12:05 my time, Freddie Peralta versus Carlos Rodon. Who had Carlos Rodon being the Yankees opening day starter in the Brewers versus the Yankees? 2 teams with a lot of playoff hopes. 2 flawed division champions from last year, but have hope for it this year. And it's going to be 12:05 California time. And those of you know, I'm a special education teacher at Pasadena High School, and I have a buddy who I'll just call D, who's in my class, who's a huge baseball fan. And guess what, D? At lunchtime tomorrow, we're turning on the Brewers and Yankees on the big board. Everyone else can go pound sand. Bunch of day games going on tomorrow, including Baltimore versus Toronto. Toronto has to get out of the gate fast. I know it's silly to say they're big games, but I do think there are some teams, especially in the American League, where everything is bunched together. You got to get out to a fast start. If you come stumbling out of the gate, of course you can right the ship. We saw with Detroit. We saw it every year. There's a team that gets off to a bad start. You'd rather not have a bad start and come back for it, especially if you're a team that's on the bubble like Toronto. I specifically pointed out Toronto because if they start to flounder and they start to play badly and they fall out of it, it may behoove them to find a taker for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I think they should sign him to they should sign him to a very long-term contract. Toronto is a huge media market and they're Canada. Now, okay, I'm not getting into what's happening in the world outside. Canada is our friend. They have been our friend. Good Lord. And but they have the whole country there to build upon. They should just sign Vladdy Jr. But if they go off to a crummy start, especially against a team like Baltimore, you may have to at least entertain the idea. You don't want to see what happened with the Angels and Shohei. Crochet is starting for the Red Sox, and old Red Sox friend Nathan Eovaldi is starting for Texas in the matchup between a team that I think is greatly improved. I think the Red Sox are greatly improved. And by the way, good for Alex Cora for finding some peace in the Rafael Devers, the situation where what are you going to do with him? What are you going to do with him? This is what you do with him. The Bregman's a third. He's the best third baseman. And Devers is the DH. Remember, Vladdy Jr. was a third baseman. It didn't quite work out. I love Devers. And Devers has been a great champion for the Red Sox. And I don't blame him for being ticked. It's like, this is my position. What's going on here? I can understand that. But this is why Cora is good. Yeah, I know he cheated and did all sorts of stuff like that, but he's also good. It's important for the Red Sox to, show that this new team is going to be a good quality team. But the Rangers, Rangers are a team that they lost Jordan Montgomery. Oh no, Jordan Montgomery's been so non-consequential. I forgot what team he was on for a second. He's on the Diamondbacks, Sully. It's late. I've been working hard in the In Memoriam. I think the Rangers have a terrific year. I think they're going to win the pennant. Phillies and Nats are playing Wheeler versus Gore. I picked the Phillies to win the World Series. And I think on the strength of their pitching staff. Oddly, there's a big game tomorrow. Bybee versus Reagans. Cleveland, the Guardians, and the Royals, both of them have images of winning that Central dancing in their head. And head-to-head games, whether they're in March or September, are big. And get out of the gate well and win those head-to-head games. The Mets and the Astros, this is a great series if we had a time machine taking us back to 1986. Clay Holmes is the starting pitcher for the Mets, and look at it. And Framber Valdez is pitching for the Astros. I am nervous about the Mets pitching staff. They could very well be a great playoff team. They could very well win the World Series, or they could miss the playoffs altogether. A lot of that is on the shoulders of their pitching staff. The Astros are going to be interesting because I think they're going to take a big step backwards. But if Framber Valdez pitches like an ace, who do you know? I picked the Reds to be a playoff team. I did not pick the Giants. Hunter Green and Mr. Webb is pitching for San Francisco. Braves, Padres, two teams are probably going to go to the postseason. Chris Sale, King is starting for the Padres. The one team that I think is already out of it is the Chicago White Sox. They have so many players having Tommy John surgery. They were bad anyway. Kikuchi is starting for the Angels, and the Angels need to get out of the gate for the reason that they have to save face this year, whether they're using their cell phone in their lockers or not. Starting the season against the White Sox is a nice way to do things. The Pirates and the Marlins, Skeens versus Alcantara. I'm so happy Alcantara is back. I'm so happy. I want him to be an ace. I love aces. I hope they don't just trade him. I'd like to see the Marlins actually make an effort. Hey, let's take a time machine and go back to 1987. We're going to see the Twins and the Cardinals. The Twins are for sale and have a huge amount of debt. And that's kind of a perfect storm of potential fire sale if the Twins don't get off to a fast start. Sonny Gray is pitching for the Cardinals, and he has a giant for sale sign around him. Cardinals are going to be probably dumping players. The Tigers and the Dodgers, is that going to be a World Series preview? Skubal versus Snell. Dodgers already have a 2-game winning streak. Look at that. Tigers want to show last year was not a fluke, and I don't think it was. Cubs are looking for their first win of the year. They stumbled out of the gate in Japan, and they're going to be facing Gallen and the Diamondbacks, who I think are going to be dynamite. And the aforementioned Sacramento is going to be playing the Seattle Mariners. And so all the teams, except for the White Sox, have reason to be optimistic. I'm going to keep an eye to see how Sacramento does and everyone else, but we're going to see. It's going to be fun. This is what it's all about. By the way, Brian Pearson says, what do you think about the what do you think the White Sox do this year? Hide. They're not going to be as bad as last year. How about that? How about that, seeing the glass is half full? How about that? Well, when we come back, I'm not going to be looking forward. I'm going to be looking back and talk to you a little bit, pulling back the curtain about a project that I do every year. And I do it not because I'm expecting anything in return other than, I don't know, hopefully touching the hearts and souls of some people as we begin this baseball season. Let's hear from our good friends over at Wonderful Pistachios. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. I buy these. I get these. This is a real thing. I have a bag of Wonderful Pistachios, the roasted, unsalted, out of the shell in my desk in my classroom. And I hope my buddy D, who loves to watch the baseball games with me, hasn't figured that out. But I love it. Go in. It's a quick snack. It's not a cookie. It's not a Twinkie. It's not something like that. It's something good for you and fills you up. It's fantastic. And they got a great protein punch. They've got 9 essential amino acids. And you know what? Whether you're just trying to get through the day or you can't wait to start the podcast, Wonderful Pistachios. That's the way to go. So get snacking, get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. This is the opening day, and since 2014, I've been producing a In Memoriam video where I pay tribute to those who we've lost in the last year. The first year I did it, and the first bunch of years I did it was before the All-Star game. I tried to get the In Memoriam before first pitch of the All-Star game. And that the origin of that was I started doing this in 2014. The first 2 I did in collaboration with my friend Rafael Rivera. And since the third one, I've been doing them on my own, but thanking Rafael because, first of all, Rafael is a wonderful guy and a fabulous editor, and he taught me some of the tricks and the trades of making it, how to make it look and feel more like an In Memoriam video like you'd see at the Oscars. The original one was done as a middle finger because the All-Star game in 2014 was played, and they made no mention, they paid no tribute to Tony Gwynn, a 13, 14-time All-Star, one of the most beloved players of the last 20 years, and who had just died. He had just died like a month before, and they didn't pay tribute to him. And it was just like, really? Did the pitching change? You don't have a little video package or something? You don't salute or something? And the BS, I almost said a bad word there, the BS excuse that Fox gave was, well, if we had paid tribute to him, we'd have to pay tribute to everyone. And I joke saying, yes, because a lot of 14-time All-Stars just dropped dead in the last month. But then my buddy Raphael and I said, well, wait a minute. Why didn't they have an In Memoriam video? There's certainly there's 18 commercial breaks at least with all the innings. Play them during one of them. And we showed how easy it was to do it. We made one in like 3 hours. We just cut together quickly something and we put it to the natural and went viral. And so after that, I've done it every year. As I said, at first it was always during the All-Star game, but in the COVID year in 2020, there was no All-Star game. And so I created the In Memoriam for that year before opening day. And ever since then, I've had it be on opening day. So 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 20, 21, 22, 23. I've done 6. Holy God. I've done 6. How long ago was COVID? Didn't that just happen? And I try not to make them too long, but at the same time, I want to capture as much as I can. I don't want them to be a slideshow, just a bunch of still pictures. And I also try to have a certain flow to the video. I always like to start with a big name, to grab you. I always like to have the last one be, huge, and then the second to last one to lead into the last one. There's some connection between the second to last and the last one. And then throughout it, there are a lot of still images that I put in there, but I try to get as many video clips as possible because there's a certain motion that happens when you have, there's a certain momentum when you see moving pictures as opposed to just still pictures of players. That's sometimes easier said than done. There's a very poor video quality of some games and highlights. And like, for example, I was trying to get one of Rico Carty, former All-Star and National League batting champion. And I could not find a clip of Rico Carty which had both good sound and good video. I had one that had decent sound, but the video looked like it was, a grocery store security camera. And then I found one that had decent video, but the sound was awful. And there were sometimes I would take like the highlight reel from like MLB productions, but the radio broadcast, so there's a certain it just doesn't sound like it's in a tin can, but also because a lot of times when you have like the World Series highlight reel, they have music behind it. I don't want to have like a marching band playing under it. And then throughout the video, I try to have moments like, okay, we're gonna have a bunch of faces and then a big one, bunch of faces and then a big one. And then, we had a bunch of faces in Bob Uecker and a bunch of faces in Louis Tiant or Fernando Valenzuela. Pete Rose, I put in there. There were some people asked me if I was going to put Pete Rose in there, and there's reason to not. But I felt if I was going to do this honestly, you can't tell the story of baseball without Pete Rose. So I decided to include him in there. I know some people probably won't be happy about that. I stuck him in the middle. I don't end with him. The first one I put was Ricky Henderson. Obviously, you have to lead off with Ricky. And then, I finished with Willie Mays. Obviously, you're not going to have a bigger one than Willie Mays. I'll tell you a couple of things I did, some things I put throughout the video there, the In Memoriam video, which I have, by the way, if you're watching the YouTube, go to the description below. There is a link to the In Memoriam video. So if you're watching this, click on that link in the description and watch the video. And please, if you like it, if it hopefully makes you cry, hopefully gives you a goosebump or two, share it, post it to your friends. I'd love to reach out to everybody there. Almost always I have an image, kind of a generic image of a baseball on a field, a baseball on a glove, to be the opening image of this, to be a sense of isolation before the In Memoriam video begins. I decided to do something different this year. I had to acknowledge the loss of the Oakland A's. And so I had an pretty sparse crowd, and Lord knows there were enough sparse crowds in Oakland over the last bunch of years. And it looked like an empty section. And there was one guy sitting there wearing a yellow Dave Stewart A's jersey, kind of looking off into the distance, sad. And I decided to keep that shot and keep it in focus when you see the sun is setting behind the Oakland Coliseum, to sort of include the sadness of losing that team without blatantly saying it, to just be there and say, yeah, this is a sense of loss, and the loss is also for this team and this game in the East Bay. And so that was a deliberate decision. But I'll tell you, the hardest thing I had this year was coming up with the music. I usually, I have a music bed. I usually find a piece from a composer, a film composer, and this was it was hard because in the past I'd pulled things like The Natural, I pulled some stuff from Glory, I pulled stuff from Field of Dreams, pulled stuff from The Rocketeer, great movie if you haven't seen it. The Untouchables I used one year, Moneyball I used one year, The Cider House Rules all have beautiful scores. And one year I used this one of the tracks from Superman, not the main theme, but the track between Clark and his mother when he's leaving the farm. It's actually a beautiful piece by John Williams. I couldn't find one. I was trying. I tried. There's a wonderful film called Sing Sing that came out last year with Domingo Coleman. It's a fabulous movie if you haven't seen it. And I really liked the music score. And I thought, I'll try that. Didn't work. It was too atonal. Then I pulled an older film back from '94 with Brad Pitt and Anthony Hopkins called Legends of the Fall. It's not a film I'm crazy about. It's a great music score, but it was too much. I need to find that perfect storm of a piece that has sort of dramatic swells, but also more subtle sort of pathos. And appropriately enough, I found that in The Perfect Storm, another score by the great James Horner, the great late James Horner, who did Glory and Field of Dreams and Rocketeer, as I mentioned before, also did Titanic and Star Trek Wrath of Khan and Cocoon and Avatar, so many great films that he did the music for. And I'm not a huge fan of the film, The Perfect Storm, but I was stumbling through other soundtracks and I found that and said, oh my God, this is it. This absolutely is perfectly fits it. And it rises and falls. And there's a couple of little points in it where by complete accident, like there's a little swell when someone catches a ball or a little trill when someone throws it. It's like, wow, it feels like it was perfect. I'm glad I took my time. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope it gives you a little tear. I think it's important to honor the past instead of just always looking for the future. And I think that it's also baseball has a connection to the past that is different from any other sport. We honor the past, present, and future simultaneously. We're going to be doing that all day tomorrow. I made the In Memoriam where we review the great events of the past to the people we've lost. And we'll see people throwing out the first pitch and honoring people at the beginning of the game of the past. The present will be the games on the field. And the future is, what will this year hold for us? Well, when we come back, we're going to wrap things up, answer a trivia question, bring on another one, and give you a quick reminder of Mr. Dan Bankhead. Hey, do you ever get to the end of the week and think, hey, where did all my money go? Check your bank account. Then you see you dining out, you're ordering stuff, and there's all sorts of subscriptions you forgot you had. It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't about just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, spending in one place. So you can stop just managing your money and start building wealth. And not just with you, but your partner, your spouse, or whomever. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. It's got all-in-one convenience. So instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check in on your finances, track spending, and even make long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at Monarch Money for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. And right now, we're going to hear from our good friends over at Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage, so now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Hey, I forgot to answer the trivia question from the other day. Forgive me. Let's see. The trivia question is the trivia question was, sorry, who was the first player born in Japan to hit a postseason home run? And the answer, TMG 6125, guessed it correct. It was Hideki Matsui. Hideki Matsui pulled the job off in 2003. I actually thought it was Ichiro. I guess I have a weird memory of him hitting a home run in that series against Cleveland in 2001. And guess what? I was wrong. Completely wrong. Not even. So yes, that is correct. That is correct. We'll have a new one coming up, new question coming up in just a second. The reason I'm bringing up one of the most popular and memorable opening days in the history of baseball was obviously in 1947 when Jackie Robinson made his debut, breaking the color barrier and really, well, holding I hate to say holding a mirror up, but essentially kickstarting a lot of change in attitudes that a lot of people, obviously, Jackie faced a lot of people who hated him. There was a lot of people who thought that he should not have been there, clearly, and the wrath and the vitriol that he faced was absolutely mind-boggling. Although maybe not mind-boggling when you consider just so many people. Just there were people then, there are people now, and there always will be people who just see the worst. And it's been well documented of how he didn't fight back those first 2 years, how he was alone, and he had to face this with the adversity with a great amount of dignity. And of course, there was a film 42 with the late Chadwick Boseman, who played Jackie Robinson. Very well-intentioned movie. There's some things about it I liked. There's some things about it I didn't like. But there was one thing about it that kind of rubbed me the wrong way when I saw it. And it helped that I know some of these things. But the character of Dan Bankhead was not included in that movie and seems to never be included in any retelling of that 1947 season with Jackie Robinson. Who the hell is Dan Bankhead? Dan Bankhead was a pitcher who actually, when he came up to the major leagues, hit a home run as a pitcher in his first game. He didn't pitch that well, and he eventually was sent back to the minors, came back to the majors a few years later. But he was a teammate of Jackie Robinson. He was the second black player on the Dodgers that year. He was a big star in the Negro Leagues, where he played with the Birmingham Black Barons, the Cincinnati Clowns, and with the Memphis Red Sox. He missed a few years because he served in World War II, became a sergeant, and he was in the Marine Corps Reserve. And he was signed by Branch Rickey shortly after Jackie was signed, and he came up through the farm system as a decent pitcher and a good hitter as a pitcher. And for a period of time, Jackie had a teammate. There was another person, and that there was another African-American person on that team, at least for a period of time. Also during that year, there were a couple other players who came up with Cleveland and some other teams. But it always fascinated me that event is never brought up. That event is never written about. And certainly not part of the popular culture, which seems to be sort of obsessed with this idea of Jackie being alone. And he was for most of the year. But wouldn't that have been an interesting point in that movie or in the telling of the story, that for a few games, there was someone else that he could take under his wing and can look at and relate to? I've always wondered about that. Now, Dan Bankhead never became a star, and eventually he died in 1976. He played more years in the Mexican League than he did in the major leagues. But respect to Dan Bankhead for coming up there and briefly being someone that Jackie Robinson could maybe commiserate with, or probably say, let me tell you how to deal with this. But it's strange. I've always found it odd that he seems to be written out of the story, a story which is already interesting, and there seems to be no reason to embellish it. So why not just tell it correctly? Well, either way, we're going on to opening day, and the trivia question goes to opening day in 1961. The Angels played the Orioles in front of 37,000 fans in Baltimore. It was the first ever game of the Angels. In that game, former Red Star Ted Kluszewski, it's easy for you to say, did something in the first 2 innings of that game. What did Ted Kluszewski, it's late, do in the first 2 innings of the first ever Angels game? That is the trivia question. Put the answer right down here in the YouTube. And Jesus Garcia comes in and says, Sully, thanks for your dedication and effort in the podcast. Listen almost every day since 2021. I can't imagine opening day without the show and a ballpark hot dog every day. Sully, Jesus Garcia, I'm feeling it, and thanks for the kind words. And Brian Pearson, I'm reading all the stuff you're saying. I'll mention some of that in the upcoming episodes. I got to go to bed. Talking about opening day, the present, the excitement for the season that's going to unfold, the future, and honoring the past with the In Memoriam and with Dan Bankhead, all happening at once. That's what baseball does. This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Let's play ball. And you can call me Sully.